Hello, I'm Darryl Cross and I work as an executive coach and as a personal coach. But today I'm talking about parenting because I'm actually a clinical psychologist as well. And no matter whether I'm coaching or occasionally putting on my clinical psychology hat, this issue of parenting comes up fairly constantly. And why? Well, basically it causes parents lots of stress. We're never quite sure that we're doing it right, and we often feel guilty that we're doing it wrongly. And it's one of these really ambiguous areas that no one has given us training in. In fact, it never ceases to amaze me that the two areas in life that are absolutely critical to this community and to our society is being a parent and knowing how to do that well, and being a marriage partner or a permanent partner and knowing how to relate well. And we get zero training and assistance in those two areas, which is, I think, tragic to say the least. It's probably true to say I've had more training on using my laptop and some software packages than I ever have had in raising my three children, who thankfully are adults now and have made it successfully through adulthood despite my parenting and my best efforts. So what is it about this whole area that I want to mention to you? It's essentially, I want you to understand the way in which children develop, I guess. I've written an ebook on parenting that is on the internet, but right now I just want to really talk about the fabric or the paradigm by which I think the person develops, so that we get this parenting in perspective. In the first instance, therefore, we have something that looks like a foundation, because if we want to build a house, and I'm using the parallel here, or the analogy of building a house in order to describe the critical role of parenting, then what we do first up is we lay a foundation. And I think that foundation gets laid in about the first 7 years. I've certainly read in various articles and papers that maybe it's the first 3 years of life that this basic foundation gets laid, or maybe it's the first 5 years. I've even had people suggest to me in seminars that it might be in the first 9 months in the womb, and I'm happy to take all of that on board. From my own experience, I think the first 7 years is really quite critical, because I really do like the Jesuit saying that says, give me a child until he's 7 and I'll show you the man. I know that's a sexist way of saying it, but nevertheless the emphasis is there. Give me a child until he's 7 and I'll show you the person. That's really critical to understand, because this is the vital stage. There are no shortcuts in parenting. And we don't want to shortcut this foundational period. This is when basic self-esteem is laid down, when basic ways for living are laid down, success features are laid down. This is when the child needs to receive love and oodles of it, stacks of it, heaps of it, so that they feel good about themselves. That foundation is critical, because after that period of time, if we're going with our house analogy, up go the walls. And we have the walls being built, and basically what do we call those walls? Well, we call those walls adolescence. And adolescence then builds on this foundation. And that will be somewhere around about 12 or 13, depending on puberty, up until maybe, traditionally we always said it was 21. I'm not quite sure whether it's 18 now or 21. In this community, the Western society, it tends to vary depending on who you talk to. But adolescence occurs, and it needs to be built on a firm foundation, because ultimately then what happens is we then put on the roof, and the roof is all about adulthood. Now, what's really critical to understand in this paradigm is that if we don't put in the effort and time down here in the first few years, and we get some major cracks occurring in the foundation, then that has severe repercussions for the rest of the building. And those cracks need to be fairly major cracks. most of us have got some healthy little neurotic cracks. We all have them, I have them, and those around me I know have them too. So I'm not talking about the little cosmetic cracks that we've all got. I'm talking about major cracks that have to do with childhood abuse, violence, aggression, maybe parents on drugs. I'm talking about things that are really quite sinister here, where we have major cracks in the foundation that occur earlier on. And if we have that, then of course we have difficulties in the walls. The walls will show significant cracks because of the cracks in the foundation. And of course, when we get to adulthood, we have significant problems with the superstructure. We have the superstructure not fitting properly onto the rest of the walls and the rest of the fabric of the house. And so in the storms of life, and there are storms that occur, the house that has lots of cracks will be fragile and will need a lot of attention. Whereas if we have a house that only has some hairline cracks, like most of us have, some nice little neurotic cracks at best, then that will stand up against the storms of life. So the message, I guess, really is to make sure that we have these first 7 years as very effective, productive years. And for that reason, I've written this ebook called Growing Up Children. And you'll find it on growingupchildren.com. And the subtitle is How to Get Children to Behave and Do as They're Told. Because I feel very strongly about getting your parenting right, more or less right. We never get it 100% right. I know I've been there. I've never met a parent who says I've done it perfectly. There is no such parent on the planet. But we want to make sure we give our children the best start that we can in life, because those 7 years are critical.